Recently, I went to stay at Fullerton Hotel for a staycation. This is a simple sketch for memory sake. Let's go. So we're here at the Fullerton Hotel for a staycation. Well, it's just one night, but because my daughter has holidays, and so we're gonna take the advantage of taking some time off to chill here, enjoy a day out of the house. Oh, it's so crazy during this COVID period that we have to relax by getting out of the house. So here, showing you the lobby. We're checking in. It was actually a very pleasant experience. That's Ng Teng Fong, one of the philanthropists that built many parts of Singapore. You can see the high column. It's probably about 8 stories, I think. Used to be a post office. There's now, it has a gallery. So where one of the art gallery, display some of the art pieces here. There are 2 ushers, I suppose, that greet us, and there's a nice cake shop. Very nice place. So let me show you the room. This is going around. We have a suite. It has enjoined sort of a lobby. Pretty nice. I mean, we have a very good view, direct view of the Marina Bay Sands. You'll see it later. This is the bedroom. Unpacking as we go in. Pretty spacious looking room. And at this point, we went out to look for a drink. Family was going for a massage. Got myself a whiskey sour with something at Signature Reserved. As I sat down, there was very few people because it was a work day. And I found this across the room. There's these people sitting there talking. And seated people are always very easy target for urban sketching. They don't move as much for at least a while. So, but then I realized they are at the tail end of their meeting and they were going to go away. So I had to really hurry up with my drawing. And I decided to just go with my fountain pen, trusty fountain pen, Sailor Bended Nib. And all I wanted to do is just capture very, very broad shape and make it easier for me to sketch as well. A simple tip for urban sketching is that if you're going to sketch figures and human figures especially, seated's always better option than standing, presumably because standing they are more mobile, and before you could finish your drawing they would move away. And this is especially true for beginners because if you think about sketching human, seated's always better than standing, and standing's always better than cycling or running for sure, right? Because unless you are very, very fast, someone who is running or cycling will disappear in no time. But it doesn't mean that you cannot draw people in motion. I mean, if you have sketched enough, you have some muscle memory with dynamic figures, you can always add them in from memory. That's always possible, but I really suggest for beginners to try not to attempt that at first. So try sketching people who are seated, progress to people who are standing, and then progress to people who are actually moving. The other tip here is that even as I'm drawing the group of 3 here, I'm observing that a lot of the elements of design, lines for example, is going vertically, lots of vertical lines. So in order to break that monotony of vertical lines, the organic human figures and the backdrop where there are some almost horizontal lines are going to break the monotony of the vertical lines. That will provide the contrast. My previous video talks about the contrast principle, and in the next video I'll be honing in specifically on contrast, or the idea of competing elements. So in this case it will be organic line versus vertical lines, or rather even another option would be horizontal lines versus vertical lines. And I intend to actually just make the horizontal line slightly raised so that it is not vertical but or horizontal rather, but it's slightly slanted. And slanted lines have a lot of energy. And I'm observing as well that the people are in dark suits, so that will also give me a very good contrast to what I intend to blow up with very, very colorful watercolor later. And probably yellow against sort of a dark purplish grayish sort of tone, if you like. And that is also another contrast I'll be playing with. So there are two contrasts I'll be playing with. One is lines, the other one would be color or values, using yellow versus a very dark color. And that should make the sketch pop, if you like, or at least sufficiently popped. So alright, I'm almost done with the sketch. I think I've sort of captured the mood of the place. Some, slightly slanted lines to give it energy. Representing the table in front, and put in my name while I kind of wait for the ink to dry a little bit before I smash in the colors, because after all, lines are to help put in the colors, right? And that's the date, 2021 September 16. It's a Thursday. And you can see some of the whiskey stuff that they have at the lounge. Here, that's a sketch I did at Signature Reserved. We're going to start putting in the colors at this point. I'm thinking dark versus spots of bright colors. Slightly purplish, I guess. And so, it doesn't have to be purple off the bat. I mean, it can be blue with some red. Just to play with the contrast of values, if you like. And there's actually no darker colors in my palette than the phthalo green. So in that it goes, get a bit of a dark, representing the shadow side of the jacket of the lady on the right. I'm thinking at this point, let's put in all the dark value first, because the dark value sort of, the interesting shape of the human figures, that will contrast with all the vertical columns that I see at the back, as well as the chairs with the vertical legs. That should give it very nice contrast, and should make the sketch interesting in itself. One of the things that you have to remember in the aesthetic concept or principles is that value is one of the most effective attraction for the eye. So if you use a opposite value, in other words, if you put a value of 1 and a value of 5 together, close enough, and it will attract attention. And so in some way, I will be using values, and I'll be using colors just to attract or make the sketch attractive. It's also important that it is not always going to be, smashing in the value of 5 and a value of 1. It's actually very important to get the mid-tones, in other words, value 3, value 2, value 4, in appropriate measure, so that there is a somewhat of a dominance, but it is not an overpowering of, value 5, assuming that your sketch is from value 1 to 5, 5 being the darkest. So as you can see here, the darkest values are reserved for the blazers and jackets, and mostly part of the figures, if you like. And the mid-tones, value 3, 4, are reserved for the background. I've left lots and lots of highlights. Some of the colors, the shapes rather, I will not be putting in colors. It's just, I guess, my preference, if you like. And here, the ground, I am putting in a bit of brown, but it's going to be probably value 2, 3, at most 3, and that is just to contrast it with the value of 4, 5 that I put in for the figures. If you were to take this finished sketch later and if you scan it, or you take a photo with a black and white filter on, you should be able to read the figures well, because the figure should stand in terms of the values that are darker, as contrasted with the background, which should be lighter in values. It's just one of those things that you just need to keep in mind. I took the opportunity, as I see there are some decorations on the right hand side that are horizontal in nature, short strokes. I use that and pit that against the many vertical lines that I've already laid earlier. Again, when you are sketching, you always look for opportunity to play with values, to play with different orientation of line, organic versus geometric lines, vertical versus horizontal lines, oblique lines even, and even colors. If you put out a red, think whether you should put out a green. If you put in a yellow, think whether you need a purple. If you put in a blue, think whether an orange spot might work. Just don't put it in equal measure. In other words, if you put in a bunch of blue, don't put in equal measure of orange. I mean, even a little dot of orange next to it would make the blue bluer to your eyes, just simply because it creates that baseline, if you will, and it will make the color pop just because there's an opposites in the room. And that's why the idea of contrast is so important. And the elements of design, if you think about it, there's 7. There's space, there is line, shape, form, there is color, texture, and values. And each of these can be used to create competition or contrast. And in that sense, it's a tool set in your toolbox to create interesting sketches. Even your sketch, when it's not really well drawn or well painted, in terms of your finesse, it doesn't matter. It creates interest when you use these concepts of contrast or competition for your sketches. It will just look interesting. I mean, it just creates interest simply because you're applying the concept of aesthetics to it, and it will work. Anyway, I was having my whiskey, so some of the alcohol was kind of in effect. So whatever I do at this point, it doesn't really, may not be perfect. It doesn't matter. I mean, it was really just to sketch the memory of my staycation in Fullerton, if you like. And again, I always find opportunity to draw that oblique line, the contrast, the competition, and the interest. If you do too many of one thing, just do something that is exact opposite, just to bring the interest and the competition out to the fore. Here I'm just dabbing and dotting and creating little shapes that is on top of each other to clarify and make the chair readable, to make the figures readable, if you like. Mostly, I'm reading shadows, I'm reading dark, I'm reading values. That's not very hard to do because they are right in front of me. But at this point, the 3 persons has finished their meetings and they are, wrapping up, and they are standing and they are gonna go off. I did take a photograph, so some reference on a photograph may work. But even at this point, I'm almost done, so the reference it's not really needed anymore. So, I'm almost done, and I'm just thinking to myself, well, it's a good memory for this place. I didn't do a lot of sketch this time around, but maybe, I may need something just to brighten it. So here we go. We're going to put some really bright color, specifically just to contrast against the dull, dark shapes and colors that I've already put in. So in goes lemon yellow. In goes new gamboshed as a base, and that should really make the bright pop. I am just picking a couple of spots at random. Cadmium orange, and I let it drop wet in wet, and then cadmium yellow on the cadmium orange, and that should make it really, really bright, as if there is spotlight shown on those spots. And I think I'm done. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the sketch of my staycation of Signature Reserve, the bar in Fullerton Hotel. In the evening, I decided we will, take a quick walk around Boat Quay. This is a famous area where people used to run up and down with sacks of rice and flour and whatnot. and there's nice lights these days. I don't really normally come out at night for a walk, but since we are staying right next to the place, Boat Quay, Fullerton Hotel is just right next to it. We came out and take a stroll, enjoy the breeze, and enjoy the space that we seldom see, even though Singapore is very small. So I hope you enjoyed that. Stay safe wherever you are. This is We Take Out. Bye.